interpreters?
Folks that are joining on the webinar are receiving interpretation from the interpreters, but we're recording it so we can post it afterwards in that language.
Okay, so we should have Violet interpret throughout.
Yes, if you do need to, yes, unless they're logged into the Zoom room.
So they get the interpretation in the moment, but not in the viewing later.
They we'll post. We're actually recording the two rooms, Haitian Creole and Spanish. They're being interpreted in while you're speaking. So at the end of the meeting, probably by tomorrow morning, those will both be posted on the web as well.
Very good. So we'll just have Violet interpret for anyone in the room.
Okay. Yes.
Very good.
Good. And I'm going off camera.
All right. Okay. Maybe flowers either way.
You guys are good to go.
Ready?
¿Alguien necesita traducción de español? Estamos bien.
We're good. Okay. Oh. Welcome in. Hi. Hello.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Hi, Julie. Nice to see you. I just saw the outside.
Welcome, everyone. We've just started the video and entered everybody into the virtual room. At the same time, folks have entered this room. And so Janine.
So welcome, I'm Jeannie Randolph. Welcome to our Specialized Learning Executive Subcommittee meeting, I should say. Joining me this evening are Bridget Adams, the Executive Director of Specialized Learning, who will be doing the majority of the presenting this evening, or all the presenting. And Deidre McKinnon from her team is here as well. And we're going to go ahead and get started as people are going to keep coming in, but we'd like to get started for everybody who's waiting. So we'll go right ahead.
Hi. Thank you so much, Janine. Welcome.
Our foot traffic today.
Welcome, Mary Ellen Love with Clarity as well.
Is that okay?
Yes.
And I'm just going to reposition our camera. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, parents and team members. I'll introduce you in just a moment. Other members of my team are here as well. Thank you. Special Education or Specialized Learning Board Subcommittee and all of our community members who are joining us virtually. We are so grateful to you for joining us this evening for our conversation to welcome families to Norwalk Public Schools and to special education. And so we may have folks who are joining us this evening whose students qualify and are eligible for special education. And we may have families joining us this evening whose young people at this time don't qualify or aren't eligible. But the purpose of this evening's conversation is to talk about that process, to welcome you to the district, and then talk through aspects of special education that we hope will be supportive. I know that we may have some folks in the room who know this process very well, and I'm excited that you're here as well, because each year is a new opportunity for us to start over and start fresh. And so I wish you happy school year. Violet Reyes is here to interpret for us if the need arises, and we are so grateful for that. I'd also like to include introductions of my team who are here in addition to Deirdre McKinnon, who was introduced. Sarah Weersman is joining us from the department.
Evening, everybody.
Jamie Granite.
Good evening.
And Rachel Davis.
Good evening.
Hannah Cohen is farther off to the right. And please forgive the camera person. She is me. Joining us remotely is Marshall Medley. And so we're very happy to have so many of our team members join us tonight and so many families join us when we know that there are so many obligations to their young people, to your young people. And it's just so affirming to know that so many people are here with us to celebrate and enter into the new school year. Deirdre, would you advance the slide? Oh dear. There it is. Our agenda was published publicly in the invitation to the subcommittee conversation. And this is a summary of that agenda. These are the topics we anticipate speaking about this evening. Of course, to welcome you, introduce you to the Specialized Learning Department, introduce the team members, those who are here and those who are at home with their young people or their families this evening. We're going to talk about an overview of the special education process, moving into the initial PPT process. We're going to talk about a new initiative in the district related to a parent feedback survey. We're going to also share with you some upcoming opportunities for you for families, and then share resources and share with you throughout this presentation live links that will bring you to many of these resources that we discussed this evening. Just here on the table is a sign-in sheet. We ask that if you are here before you leave, if you haven't, you just sign in, and copies of the Parent's Guide to Special Education are here. There will be links to those documents and all of the documents that we speak about added in the webinar and also uploaded for future access. Deirdre, are you able to advance? Excellent. In all presentations with the Department of Specialized Learning, we begin with our belief statements. We review these, even if we are meeting. There are times where we've met in subcommittee and discussed these beliefs and then held a board meeting shortly thereafter and discussed these beliefs. It's necessary when we envision the work that we do to bring ourselves back to our core beliefs for young people. And this department, this district, and this community believes that all students can and will learn, that all students are general education students first, that special education is a service. It's not a place. It's not somewhere where you go to get your education. You get your education in the public school system, and you receive those services if you require them. General education curriculum is special education curriculum. Every child has the right to their least restrictive environment, and it is the job of educators to provide scaffolds for accommodations. I realize the letters are cut off because of the screens, but please bear with us. The whole presentation will be available. It is through these beliefs that we envision our work. The vision of the Specialized Learning Department is the same as the vision of the district: to build a more equitable world where each and every Norwalk student is prepared for all aspects of life. And it is with this vision in mind that we work every day to reach and achieve, and sometimes exceed, our mission to provide an excellent and equitable education so all students graduate future ready, civically responsible, globally engaged, and positive contributors to an ever-changing, diverse world. Please join us.
This is the meeting?
Yes.
Oh, I have my kid.
Okay, see you, room. Come on in. Come.
Hello.
A glimpse into the classrooms in Norwalk Public Schools. I wanted to take some time to share with you briefly the people that are the Specialized Learning Department. These are data points, numbers, whole numbers of individuals who are employed by Norwalk Public Schools at a moment in time. I say that it's a moment in time because we are hiring and recruiting every moment of every day. In fact, I had a conversation with Hannah maybe 2 hours ago about the onboarding of new staff. So we are constantly looking to recruit and fill positions as necessary. We currently have 163 paraprofessionals working in this district. We are uniquely positioned to have 74 registered behavior technicians. When we look at that number of behavior specialists compared to other districts, we truly are uniquely positioned, and it's a great service for our students. We have 134 teachers of specialized learning. We have 16 compliance monitors. These are special ed teachers who work in the schools and support the entire special ed process as it relates to the compliance, accuracy, and legality of IEPs. We have 2 instructional leads at the high school level, and these instructional leads not only support compliance, but also the process in the comprehensive high schools as well.
Can we jump in like we do normally, or is this?
I would think so.
Okay, so that's that phrase, compliance monitor,
Mhm.
is that person at any time teaching, or only in a kind of check to make sure we're okay with the state?
So they are always teaching and case
Okay.
managing. And in addition to those responsibilities, this is a leadership role that they take on in addition to their
Okay,
responsibilities.
That makes sense. So they will be interfacing with the kids.
Yes,
That's their main thing. And then this is the leadership role.
component. Yeah, like a teacher leadership
Okay.
opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you for asking that.
So just to piggyback off that, the 16, is that out of the 134 or is that 16 plus 134?
That is 16 out of, because they are those people.
Okay.
It's not a separate individual.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying the question. I'm not going to read each number here. Again, the slides will be available to you. These are the numbers of individuals in each of the roles of related service or support staff within the department that we currently have on staff with us. And just to name a few, speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, teachers of the deaf, teachers of the hearing impaired, BCBAs, social workers. We also then contract with individuals in these areas when the need arises.
So going to that BCBA, the behavior analyst, and just on the slide before there was RBA, and I was thinking that was a behavior analyst.
So the BCBA board certified behavior analyst. I'm hesitant to use the word supervisor because of the connotation. Welcome. Come on in. I'm gonna actually leave it open.
Yeah.
I think we're okay to do that. They do supervise the RBTs. So the RBT is what we previously called a highly trained paraprofessional.
I see. Okay.
So then we move into the different classifications.
All right, but they,
Additional
that
support.
RBT is not, a board certified analyst was previously a teacher and then
No,
extras.
not necessarily.
Not
I suppose I don't know that any of our BCBAs are certified teachers. It can be.
Okay.
I could, as a certified teacher, become one if I were so inclined.
I have known some that have done.
I've done both, dual
Yes.
role.
Okay,
These individuals do not fill teacher positions. They are separate from teaching positions.
thank you for clarifying that.
Yes,
Excuse me,
absolutely.
Bridget, there are a couple of people that do the
Beautiful.
interpretation, so I'll try to jump in.
Please,
Okay.
do you want to summarize or just keep going? Okay,
Let me just summarize real quick.
sure.
Para las personas que hablan español que están acá, la señora Bridget Adam está hablando de lo que es la educación especial. Los empleados que tenemos en el distrito, hay diferentes niveles de empleados. Hay personas especializadas, hay personas registradas del comportamiento, hay maestros especializados y todo es en beneficio de los niños especiales. Prácticamente es para enseñarle cómo es que el distrito funciona y lo que hacemos para apoyar a sus niños.
Thank you. A question that often arises when parents are seeking who to be in touch with, who to contact regarding questions related to special education. At any point, you just poke me.
Una de las preguntas que suceden cuando los padres o las madres están buscando apoyo de con quién hablar en cuanto a la educación especial,
We've created a chart of the order in which you would contact individuals who work with your student.
hemos creado como un parámetro de a quién usted puede comunicarse cuando hay alguna preocupación.
Your first level of contact would be with the case manager, a special educator, or the general education teacher.
Asumiendo que ya el niño recibe educación especial, la primera persona que es el punto para empezar a iniciar una conversación es lo que se llama el manejador de caso de su niño.
If through that conversation you feel respectfully that there are additional questions that you have that you need to elevate, you would then reach out to the building administrator. That's your principal, assistant principal, or perhaps a dean.
La siguiente persona, aparte de también el maestro de educación general, sería entonces el administrador de la escuela, lo que llamamos los directores o principales de la escuela, si usted siente que no se le ha dado una respuesta a su preocupación.
And there are times through those conversations that there are very specific questions related to special education that you require an answer to. And the principal or the assistant principal may say, now it's time to bring in a special ed expert. And those are the special ed administrators. I introduced you to some of them here in the room. They're Deirdre, Rachel, Jamie, Sarah, Hannah works with our related service personnel, and there are others. And when those questions become very specific around special education, that's when we move to work and collaborate with them.
Cuando las preguntas son tan específicas y necesita un poco más de apoyo y quizás hay una información específica que usted necesita que se le dé respuesta, entonces hay muchas personas que son administradoras de educación especial. La señora Adams, ella introdujo a varias de las que están aquí, que están presentes en el salón.
The administrator of related services is Hannah, so she is here as well.
La administradora de servicios relacionados es la señora Hannah, que está allí. Levante su mano.
And there are times when the conversations need to elevate to the department, the office. And then those conversations go to the education administrator for specialized learning. That is also Deirdre, in addition to her supervisory role, or myself. And something that we've worked really hard in the past, oh gosh, I guess it's been 12 or 13 or 14 months, is to truly open the doors of the department. It's really exciting that now, differently from when I worked here some years ago, the special ed administrators work in the buildings. So it's very nice to know that they are there within the schoolhouse with your students. And coming to central office to either speak with Deirdre or myself is not a closed door circumstance. We truly have opened the door so that families can come and have conversations. And truly, the highlight of most of my days is just sitting having a cup of coffee with a family, learning about their student, because those opportunities are actually quite rare for me. Hello, Mr. White, will you join us?
Una de las cosas que estamos haciendo en el distrito es a través de la administradora de educación especializada, la señora Deirdre McKinnon, aparte de su supervisora, que es la señora Bridget Adams. Ellos tratan de mantener un sistema de puerta abierta. A ella le agrada mucho cuando hay situaciones en las que ella debe de reunirse con los padres para poderles ayudar en cualquier situación.
And I think that it's important that within a reference guide, you have some photos. So you're seeing some faces this evening, but sometimes it's just nice to know who you're talking to on the phone. So you'll be able to use this as a reference, find the person you need to speak with, and there's their face. The schools that each person work with or the programs they work with are listed under their names. And Deirdre, you can just click through, stopping at the next one in case there's somebody I haven't introduced. Sarah's hiding behind the bar of individuals. This is Marshall here on the left. She is joining us virtually, so she is there. I bet you she's waving and smiling. Welcome.
Tenemos muchas, como se les dijo, varias personas que trabajan con el distrito. Es bueno tener una conexión entre lo que es la cara de la persona y el nombre de la persona. Varias están acá. Pero como ustedes ven, también hay otras personas que se han unido a nosotros a esta conferencia virtualmente, que también están presentes y disponibles para poderle ayudar en lo que necesita.
Veronica is here on your left. She is the special ed supervisor or administrator of high schools and transition programs for the district. And again, hiding behind the bar is Mr. James Lee. And he supports us at the district level as well as providing support to the Sono School and NECC.
Como ustedes vieron, hay varias personas, can you go back just a quick sec? Hay varias personas que están encargadas de las diferentes escuelas. Una de ellas, la señora Verónica Lenzen, directora de lo que es las high schools y la escuela avanzada. También la señora Rachel, que está acá. Here. Ella es también supervisora de las escuelas de intermedia, de las middle schools o las escuelas intermedias. Y al final tenemos al señor James Lee, que él es también supervisor de la escuela primaria y de la escuela Sono.
This is Abby and Levi. We recognize that there are times when individuals require very specialized education that at this time Norwalk can't provide. And in those cases, we identify very specialized schools for those individuals. Currently, we have approximately 90 students out of a total of 1,800 students with IEPs who attend schools beyond the walls of Norwalk Public Schools. And Abby and Levi are the administrators who work with those individuals.
Did you say
About 90. About 90.
Estos empleados está la señora Abby y también el señor Lavi. Ellos son coordinadores, son personas que estamos nos ayudan a poder colocar a los niños en algún otro sistema educativo especializado. De los miles de estudiantes que tenemos, prácticamente casi 90 de nuestros estudiantes están recibiendo ese tipo de apoyo fuera del distrito.
And so we engage in a conversation about the special education process. A great deal of this slide deck is a resource for you. As I mentioned, many of these links are live. And so with this slide deck that we will send to you, you'll be able to click in most places where the slides are linked. At the top of this page, there is a link in blue to an entire segment developed by the state of Connecticut that is training about the IEP and IEP process specifically for families.
Una de las cosas que tenemos disponible es como un tipo de entrenamiento o capacitación para los padres, donde usted puede entrar en ese enlace y puede encontrar una diversidad de información específica a lo que es el proceso del IEP o el plan educativo individualizado.
Here behind Violet and myself are copies of the Parents' Guide to Special Education in Connecticut. They're both here in English and in Spanish. We welcome you to take one. This document is also online. By Googling Parents' Guide in Connecticut, it will pop right up, as will this training. So if you just put in IEP training for Parents Connecticut, the entire video will play. It's about 90 minutes in length. It is self-paced, so you can move through that.
Is that also in Spanish?
Yes.
El
So it's in English
entrenamiento,
and Spanish and Haitian?
I don't know about that. It's published by the state, not by us, but we will look to see which languages they have translated it to.
el entrenamiento está especificado también en el lenguaje de español y en inglés. Estos paquetes de información están disponibles en español. Tenemos una copia acá también, una en inglés y otra en español. El entrenamiento, cuando usted busca en la computadora, también está, es como un lapso de 90 minutos, es muy comprensivo y tiene mucha información.
And I'll come back to your question, if you don't mind. The documents are currently translated by the state in 10 languages and increasing. We're expecting to get to the number 29. But there are 10 languages currently where we can press a button and have all of the documents printed out. So that's very helpful.
Los documentos están traducidos por el Departamento de Educación Estatal en, how many languages?
Currently 10.
En 10 lenguajes diferentes, disponible para los padres y familias.
And so again, I share that this is a reference for you. I probably won't read every slide to you this evening, especially in the interest of time, but we do want to be sure that we define special education. And so you see the definition published by the federal government, which is of course acknowledged by the state and by this district, which means specially designed instruction at no cost to parents to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability. Welcome. Including instruction conducted in the classroom, in the home, in hospitals, and institutions or other settings. It also includes instruction in physical education and includes the related services that you can see for the most part.
Para que usted entienda a totalidad, lo importante de este proceso es que le estamos también compartiendo lo que es la definición bajo la ley de lo que es educación especializada. Prácticamente quiere decir instrucción diseñada sin costo alguno para los padres, la cual se utiliza para satisfacer las necesidades únicas de su niño con discapacidad. Eso incluye educación en el salón, en el hogar, a veces en los hospitales o en alguna institución específica o cualquier otro lugar. También eso incluye instrucción de educación física y al lado está lo que se llaman servicios relacionados y eso tiene que ver con servicios adicionales para que el niño o la niña tenga la oportunidad de tener acceso al currículum general.
And the link in the bottom right corner will bring you to the federal law, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA.
La parte de abajo le lleva a lo que conlleva la ley que tiene que ver con IDEA y es lo que la ley nos promueve hacer para los niños de educación especializada.
And the work that we do every day in this department for your individuals, for your students, is to fulfill the vision and the work of that federal law of IDEA, which was last reauthorized in 2004, and we are waiting for the reauthorization. I'd like to say any day now, but I don't think it'll be quite that quick.
La
We do
ley,
anticipate that soon.
la ley fue reautorizada nuevamente en el 2004. Esta ley nos lleva a nosotros poder someternos bajo lo que la ley nos indica hacer para los niños con necesidades especiales.
There are 6 principles of this law that we are held to every day in the work that we do. That every child receive a free and appropriate education, that they have the right and access to appropriate evaluation to ensure that we're identifying their actual eligibility criteria. They have the right to an individualized education plan, which we call an IEP or program. Students have the right to a least restrictive environment. Parents have the right, and we have the obligation to ensure that your right is met to participate in all decisions surrounding your child in this plan. And every child and every family has procedural safeguards. This is a pretty significant document. If you are a member of our department, you are offered a copy of this many times, and you may have many copies. With every invitation you receive, you will receive a copy of it. At every PPT, you will be offered a copy of it. Every year, we are obligated to give it to you for the first time, though as best practice, we tend to offer it all the time. It may get to the point where you say, no, thank you, I'm fine. I wallpaper my bathroom with it.
Hay 6 principios dentro de la ley, lo que es la ley de IDEA. El primer principio es lo que es el derecho de los niños tener una educación apropiada gratis. El próximo, que es el número 2, es que ellos tengan una evaluación apropiada a su desarrollo, que ellos también tengan un programa individualizado específicamente para reunir sus necesidades, y luego que también los niños puedan recibir su educación en un ambiente no restringido o lo menos restringido posible. Luego también es importante en el número 5 que los padres puedan participar en ese proceso para tomar todas las decisiones apropiadas a su hijo. Y luego sus derechos de procedimientos legales es un documento bien extensivo que se le da al principio de sus reuniones, pero también se lo ofrecemos todos los años. Llegará el momento en que usted diga, ya no necesito ese documento de nuevo, pero se le tiene disponible todas las veces que tiene reunión su hijo o su hija.
And at the bottom right corner of this slide, you see another link to the parental rights.
Y abajo ve nuevamente los derechos de procedimiento en la parte de abajo de esta pantalla.
We designed our conversation today to talk about the situations where we're entering the special education process. And I think it's important to note that this is one of a series of workshops that will happen monthly. And so today, as we talk about the referral process, what is the door into the special education room? We consider what is occurring prior to referral. So if we imagine for a moment a young person who's in a classroom and they are engaging in the curriculum with their peers, and perhaps they're struggling in an area. Interestingly, the research is showing us that most often this referral occurs around about the 3rd grade. It's the 3rd grade at which we've entered into the 3rd or 4th year of learning literacy. And we're about to make the shift from learning to read to learn. And while we work diligently every day to identify these needs much sooner, as soon as 3 years old, when students who are receiving birth to 3 services are identified as requiring evaluation, so many of our students find themselves in the referral process at about 3rd grade. You've got to make faces at me again to stop. I'm sorry, I'm going to be better.
Antes del referido para lo que es el proceso de educación especial, nosotros como educadores tomamos ciertas cosas en consideración. La idea es que reconozcamos la necesidad del niño a temprana edad, si es posible antes que el niño pueda comenzar su año escolar. Pero por lo general, como explicaba la señora Adams, es que usualmente ese referido viene ocurriendo como al nivel de 3er grado, que ya el niño ha tenido la oportunidad de recibir instrucción, de aprender a leer y viceversa. Entonces es en ese nivel que se empieza a ver si hay alguna dificultad de aprendizaje y ahí es donde puede empezar el proceso. Sin embargo, nosotros siempre estamos pendientes de que si eso es necesario hacerlo antes de ese grado, pues entonces se hace.
And it's the obligation of the school team to ensure what you see in this slide, to identify those areas of improvement for individuals who are presenting the need. And this is the case with any student, IEP or not. Whenever a student is presenting a need, it is our responsibility collectively to identify it.
Es la responsabilidad de los educadores ver si el estudiante tiene alguna necesidad o alguna área en la que necesita mejoría. Es nuestra obligación como educadores notar cuáles son esas dificultades para entonces encontrar estrategias y encontrar la forma de poderle ayudar en su educación.
As well as identifying, also offering strategies and interventions to support the need.
La idea es poder llenar esa necesidad a través de estrategias alternas e intervenciones para ayudarle.
And monitor their progress through those interventions.
Y también monitorear lo que es el progreso a través de las intervenciones.
So we are tasked as school teams to ensure that when those interventions are necessary, before we've even entered the stoop toward the door to the special ed house, we are obligated to ensure that we are using scientific, research-based interventions.
Una de las cosas que debemos de hacer a través de la enseñanza de los niños es reconocer de que como cuando hay intervenciones debemos pasar por un proceso que sea realmente basado en lo que son las investigaciones, ¿verdad? A través de información de data. Eso es lo que se llama el proceso de SRBI o un proceso de estrategias e intervenciones basadas en investigaciones y estudios que se han hecho.
Often referred to as SRBI and probably heretofore. As an aside, when teachers, educators start talking in alphabets with acronyms and letters, please don't ever feel at any point in PPT or ever that you don't have the opportunity to say, Bridget, you're talking in letters. Please tell me what that stands for, or any educator.
Si en algún momento está en una reunión donde usted necesita aclaración en cuanto a algunas siglas, ¿verdad? Porque a veces hablamos en letras. Si usted está en una reunión y no entiende cierta información, usted está en su derecho de decir, señora Bridget, para un momento, explíqueme lo que significa eso de SRBI o qué significa cualquier otra
If
frase.
I could just interject here, we are so happy that you're here. And I just want to say that in our regular Board of Education meetings, educators stand up and start talking in alphabet and we say, just a minute, what are you talking about? So it's not unusual to say, please explain what those letters mean. It's just that scientific research-based intervention is the long mouthful. And when you're working with it, you know, try to make it quicker, but never be shy about saying, would you explain what you're talking about?
La señora está reiterando de que cuando usted tenga cualquier pregunta, usted puede y tiene el derecho de preguntar qué significa de lo que están hablando.
There's a question in the chat, but I do believe that our moderator will break in. Okay. So, Ralph.
No problem.
Moderator.
So yes, so there was one question was, what does the member of our department mean? I don't know, EE, if you can explain a little further or type in.
I think that I may have referred to members of the department referring to not only the educators, but also families who are involved in the special education process or young people who are identified as having an IEP.
La pregunta era qué significaba miembro del departamento. La señora Adams hizo referencia a que hay empleados que son miembros del departamento, pero que también hay educadores y también hay estudiantes que son parte de recibir educación especializada.
And if I didn't answer that accurately, I'm happy to follow up after. On the previous slide, that SRBI grid that was outlined, scientific research-based intervention, is drawn from the Norwalk Public Schools website. And also linked into that previous slide was the name of the person, the education administrator for that process. SRBI tends to come before special education referral, and Dr. Perry is the supervisor of that. I've included her email in that slide, as well as a link, there it is on the bottom right, as well as a link to all of the resources and systems of SRBI in the school system.
Okay. En ese cuadrante que ustedes vieron también está la información de la señora Debbie Perry, que es la persona encargada del proceso de SRBI, que es el proceso de intervenciones a través de estudios que se han conducido. Luego ella va a hablar de lo que es el proceso de la IP y el proceso del 504.
It is always the intention of the school through intervention to bring a student to where they need to be in terms of accessing and functioning within the curriculum at grade level.
El plan es tener a los niños que puedan efectivamente estar a un nivel de su grado que le corresponde.
Yeah.
Just to connect it to what I may have saw at back to school night, is SRBI considered like the what I need part of the school day, or like a reading interventionist, or like I forgot what else
Yes,
is that kind of
you're on the right road.
Okay.
So I'll clarify that question. In Norwalk Public Schools, there's a section of every school day called WIN, which is another acronym for what I need. And a student may receive SRBI, those interventions during that WIN time. They may also receive their specialized instruction through special education during that time, if it's appropriate, or a related service, or enrichment, or protraction. It might be an opportunity for students to engage in something that they're very interested in. But you're absolutely correct.
Los niños prácticamente reciben asistencia a través de ese proceso, ¿verdad?, de investigaciones, aunque no necesariamente quiere decir que el niño recibe educación especial. Eso es como el preámbulo a lo que sería educación especial. A ese mismo tiempo que los niños en educación general reciben apoyos, también hay otros niños que reciben asistencia a través de su plan individualizado educativo, o a través de lo que es la otra área que la señora va a explicar ahora.
There are two ways in which students receive what they need beyond the general education curriculum. Some students require accommodations to access curriculum. And through a process that we refer to as the 504 process, we identify a student who requires accommodation. Students who require not only accommodation to access curriculum. So for example, let's see if they've given examples here. Sure, why not? It could be that there is a student who has a mobility need, a physical mobility need, that doesn't require specialized instruction because they're able to engage in the curriculum. But through the 504 plan, the district will identify what those needs are and provide them. A 504 plan is a document that follows an individual through every aspect of their life in every setting beyond the school system. So individuals in this room may have a 504 plan. I often share the example, I have a very significant migraine condition. And so while I don't have a 504 plan, I probably could if I required the accommodation of being in low light all the time. Luckily, I work with great people who accommodate me without the plan. But oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, recapping.
Summarize.
That's when your brain gets a little bit foggy. Hay dos áreas en las que el estudiante puede recibir asistencia, ya sea a través de lo que es educación individualizada o IEP, o lo que se llama el Plan 504, que es un plan de educación general. El Plan de Educación General 504 es un plan que se utiliza cuando la criatura tiene alguna situación, puede ser médica, necesita tal vez unas acomodaciones específicas para poder tener acceso a su educación. La señora estaba buscando unos ejemplos. Puede ser que el estudiante tenga algún problema de movilidad, quizás esté en una silla de ruedas y necesita una rampa o diferentes cosas. La señora Adams estaba explicando que ella tiene una condición de migraña severa y eso pues le da a ella la oportunidad de tener una oficina con las luces bajas y sus compañeros pues entienden mucho la necesidad que ella tiene. Esa es la diferencia entre esas dos áreas.
That's incredible. That's amazing. And the other process then is the IEP. And these plans are written for individuals who not only require accommodation, but they may, or they definitely do, also require modification to the curriculum, specialized instruction.
Okay.
Yep.
La otra parte que la introduje un poquito, que es la parte del plan individualizado educativo, es algo que requiere no solamente quizás acomodaciones, pero ahora se necesitan modificaciones para que el niño pueda integrarse a lo que es la educación.
Perhaps a more concrete way of considering this is leveling the playing field or altering the playing field, right? The 504 plan or the accommodation, which can be provided through 504 or IEP, creates the space for everyone to access everything. This is the equity that we demand for every student.
Algo muy importante, obviamente, en las dos áreas es, uno, las acomodaciones, las cuales se le pueden proveer a un sinnúmero de estudiantes para poder tener un proceso de equidad para que los niños reciban lo que necesitan.
So question comes, who makes the referral? And to be very clear, so that there are no misconceptions, anyone who knows or works with the student can make a referral. Most importantly, the parent as well.
Y en cuanto a quién puede hacer un referido, obviamente hay varias para que no haya ninguna duda. Puede ser el guardián o el padre o la madre o el padre legal o el tutor legal del estudiante.
Upon completion of a referral or receipt of a referral, for example, Violet writes to the school and says, I have concerns about my daughter Bridget. I would like to refer her to specialized instruction.
Por ejemplo, entonces vamos a decir, yo digo, mi hija Bridget tiene algunas preocupaciones que yo tengo en cuanto a su educación y me gustaría solicitar un plan de proceso para identificar la necesidad de mi hija.
The clock starts and the day of the referral is day 1.
Ahí es donde empieza lo que es el tiempo límite. Ese es el día 1 y es un proceso que conlleva ciertos límites de días.
The team will work to schedule a time with you, and you must be involved in the selection of date and time.
Los tutores legales o padres del estudiante tienen el derecho de ser parte de ese proceso y ahí se les va a informar la hora, el tiempo y cuándo se le va a hacer esa intervención.
And this graphic illustrates the necessary people at that meeting.
Esta gráfica identifica cuáles las personas estarán que van a estar pendientes en ese grupo o que están representando las diferentes áreas del estudiante. I think there was a question.
Yes.
Hey, the school referral, what is the process? If it's a staff, are they going to the parents first? Are they escalating it internally? Like, what is the direction?
That's a great question. So no referral should be made without the family being aware that that process is occurring. And typically when the school is making that referral, a young person has been engaged in the intervention process, either for academics or for behavior. And so you should know about that throughout that entire process as well. So could a referral document be completed without your knowledge?
El señor preguntaba cuál es el proceso para referir. Realmente, para hacer un referido es importante que los padres estén envueltos y conocedores de lo que está sucediendo.
The answer is yes, because we are obligated to. If we suspect that there is a disability, we have to complete that referral form. But the very next step is to contact the parent if that hasn't already happened.
Es importante, como ustedes deben de reconocer ahora, que los padres son una parte integral de ese proceso y no se puede llevar a cabo el proceso sin que los padres estén en conocimiento.
And it is my expectation as director, and I know that that's shared with my team, that would not occur without a family being made aware.
La señora Adams explica que esto no puede suceder sin, ella espera que su equipo también sabe esto y es que no se puede llevar a cabo el proceso sin su apoyo de los padres.
So again, lengthy, oh, please.
I just have a question. Does this process or anything that you've spoken so far changes for a child, whether he's in elementary, middle school, or high school? Is there any change to the process that happens, whether it's a referral, PPT, or the whole thing, like even the hierarchy of the team? Does that change as it goes on?
Not at all. From the age of 3 to the day before the 22nd birthday. And actually June past the 22nd birthday, new law, I'm getting used to saying it. Absolutely not. This process is exactly the same and it follows that federal law. There might be adjustments for very young people because they may not be in school. And it might be different for older individuals who are involved in programs beyond the schoolhouse. But ultimately, the legal process is every developmental level.
El proceso legal se lleva a cabo de igual forma, ya sea que el niño esté en grado primario o que esté en una escuela avanzada de high school.
Moderator, do you have a question out there? Didn't come off mic. Ralph, just break in at any time. Deirdre, can you go back a slide for me, please? Thank you. I'm not going to belabor this terribly. I do want this information here for you. This outlines the legal timeline that we are obligated to follow. Remember, I mentioned day 1 starts the clock, day 45 stops the clock. By that day, if a student is eligible for specialized instruction, we must have met once or twice, usually twice, developed an IEP together and have it implemented by day 45.
En cuanto al proceso, no le vamos a leer detalladamente porque es un poco extenso. Prácticamente lo que esto dice es que a partir del día 1 hay 45 días en los que debemos de regresar habiéndonos reunido 1 o 2 veces para entonces poder desarrollar un plan educativo y establecer la fecha de una implementación dentro de esos 45 días.
One of the initiatives of the department is to formalize systems for the district that may not have existed before, but are known and assumed because the law tells us what the system is.
Una de las cosas que tenemos como meta es poder sistematizar los procesos de educación especial de acuerdo a la ley.
We are in the process of writing a document for teachers so that they have a very clear outline, step-by-step process to refer to, separate from the legal documents that exist.
Aparte del documento legal que existe, estamos desarrollando un documento específicamente para los educadores del distrito, para que ellos tengan un proceso consistente específico de qué es lo que ellos deben de esperar en cuanto al proceso de educación especial.
We are following and engaging in the same process for a guide for families. This is a glimpse into what that will look like.
Esto prácticamente es un cortito, lo que ustedes ven, de lo cual también estamos estableciendo un documento que es dirigido hacia los padres, guardianes o tutores de los chicos.
Ms. Adams, we have a couple of questions. I don't know if you want to take a break for those, if you would rather wait.
Now let's take them.
Okay. So the first is, and it didn't have a name, but should a referral be made against the parent's will?
So that is a fantastic question. We are obligated to make a referral if there is a suspected disability. But nothing in this process can occur without the parent's participation and consent.
La pregunta era si se puede establecer este proceso sin la autorización de los padres. Prácticamente la ley nos dice que nosotros debemos de, si sospechamos que hay una dificultad de aprendizaje o de necesidad especial, la ley nos obliga a establecer un proceso de inicio y nada pasa, por lo que dice la señora Adams, nada pasa sin que los padres den su autorización.
If through the process, the school and the family disagree, within the document I referred to earlier, called procedural safeguards, there is a process that outlines how we work together to collaborate to come to consensus.
Es posible que en ocasiones a través de este proceso quizás los padres no estén al 100% de acuerdo con algo de lo que nosotros hayamos hecho en ese proceso. Entonces entra lo que es el documento de los derechos de procedimientos legales de los padres. Ese documento entonces nos ayuda a poder buscar otras formas de acordar en cuanto al proceso de educación especial.
Yes. Did you say there was another?
Yes, there are a few other, and there's actually Gabriela Carrillo. In a moment, I'm just going to open it up for you to speak, just because the question's in Spanish. So, but before that one, we have another question, and it refers to, we have been told that if we test for an IEP and aren't accepted or fail, we are deferred for 3 years for the child to get an IEP. And is that true? And to clarify a little more, this is referring to a kindergarten child.
I think I understand the question. I want to clarify that there is no pass-fail in this evaluation process. Students are assessed comprehensively in many areas and may not qualify for special education services. From the pause.
En ese proceso no quiere decir que hay, por ejemplo, que el niño pase o no pase la evaluación. Prácticamente lo que sucede es que vemos entonces cuáles son las necesidades de ese estudiante para ver entonces cuál va a ser el próximo paso.
So if it was determined at PPT that the student was not eligible, there is no rule that says we must wait 3 years.
If it's not found eligible.
Right. So if a student is found to not be eligible, there is no rule that says we can't reconvene or discuss again. We don't need to wait 3 years to continue conversation.
Si la criatura, vamos a decir, se establece que no es identificada como una persona o un estudiante que necesita intervenciones especializadas, eso no quiere decir que no podemos, que tenemos que esperar 3 años. Esa era la pregunta, de que si hay que esperar 3 años. Realmente no existe ese parámetro. Nosotros podemos decir que quizás la criatura no ha sido encontrada identificable. Sin embargo, al año o a los meses podemos encontrar que ahora sí reúne requisitos de educación especial.
Without knowing much more about the specific circumstance, I would invite the family to reach out to any of those individuals that we outlined in our presentation tonight or myself, and we will take a deeper look as to what the concerns are and continue to collaborate with the family in the best interest of that child.
Para la persona que hizo la pregunta, lo que podemos hacer es, si no le quedó aclarada la respuesta, podemos hablar más tarde. Usted puede llamarnos y podemos sentarnos a discutir más específicamente cuáles son las preocupaciones de ese caso en específico.
And again, I would always refer a family with this question to those procedural safeguards, because there are processes by which a family can engage to gain further clarification if there is disagreement.
Y si hay desacuerdo, obviamente las familias tienen derecho a legales de procedimientos para poder entender bien lo que es el proceso y cuáles son las dificultades o los desacuerdos en ese proceso.
Okay, and Bridget, there's a follow-up from the same person saying, so there is never a 3-year waiting period.
The only place in special education where we find ourselves discussing a 3-year difference is from eligibility to eligibility. So we do reevaluate every student every 3 years.
El único lugar donde hay un parámetro de 3 años en educación especial es cuando el niño ha sido identificado, cuando inicialmente se le dice que la persona ha sido identificada necesitando servicios especializados, el niño vuelve a ser reevaluado dentro de 3 años para ver si todavía reúne esos requisitos.
And thank you, Gabriela, for translating for me. So let me read this out loud. And Gabriela, if you'd like to actually speak, please feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute you. But the question is, good afternoon. I appreciate all the help with my little 7-year-old son who received what my son receives from his school. I have a question. My son had a stroke a year ago. I can see that he's showing significant delay in his learning, not advancing at the same pace as other children. My question is, he will be able to advance in his education or will he have to repeat years of basic education? That is, despite his cognitive deficiency, will he be promoted next year to school or not?
So these are some very important questions that I will only respond to in generality because we have a very specific conversation that needs to be had about your young person. And because we are in a public forum, I would really welcome the opportunity to speak with you at length at a different time if we could set that up.
Como sabemos que hay cosas específicas en cuanto a este caso, le agradecemos su pregunta, pero como hay otras cosas específicas en cuanto a esta pregunta, queremos hablar con usted más a profundidad porque ahora estamos en un foro público y nos gustaría sentarnos y poder hablar de su situación individualizada.
And I will say this, for every student, in every circumstance, in every experience that they've had, it is the work of the school system together with the family to ensure that every student is included in general education and has access to the education to make meaningful progress every single year in every experience that they have, including your child.
El plan, incluyendo su niño, incluye que queremos que todo niño tenga derecho a ser incluido en lo que es educación general con sus compañeros típicos de su misma edad. Y la meta es que cada año ellos progresen de acuerdo a su capacidad con las ayudas que se le puedan proveer.
So I am so grateful for this opportunity to engage in this conversation with you. I tend to be a bit of an overachiever and I've scheduled about 4 more hours of conversation for you. However, we are only allocated an hour's time together. And so I look forward to our future workshops. And I think what we will do is pick up the conversation right here in the process. I am going to ask Deirdre to flip through the slides because there are a few I want to settle on. We'll talk about preparing for a meeting and all that you can do as a family to show up to that meeting feeling confident and ready. If I say anything from this slide tonight, it's my respectful request that at the start of every meeting, when you are asked if you have any concerns, if you have new members at the table, that you take a moment to introduce that team to your child. Share the joy, share the love. You are the expert on this child, and we haven't been around them quite as long as you. So please bring pictures. Families have brought photos in a frame and left them on the table. On a screen, you might share a photo or two. So I invite you to do that at every meeting.
Una de las cosas que me encantaría es, aunque tenemos tanta información que compartir y podemos durar horas hablando, cuando usted vaya a su reunión con sus hijos, nosotros queremos conocer a sus niños. Introdúzcale su criatura a los maestros, los educadores, para que ellos puedan darse cuenta que es su niño o su niña, ¿verdad? Y que hay mucho amor y que usted desea introducirle a su niño o su niña al grupo que está.
So these are our future workshops that are planned with their dates, all except November, to talk about November. Our next topic was to engage in a conversation where we look at the IEP page by page and section by section.
Estas son capacitaciones o talleres que se van a llevar a cabo durante estos meses. Hoy obviamente estamos aquí septiembre 19, la próxima va a ser octubre 17 vamos a entrar en lo que es cada página por página de lo que es el plan educativo individualizado. Luego en noviembre le vamos a avisar más tarde y también tenemos otra capacitación en diciembre.
And I promise to pick us up at eligibility, determining eligibility, which is where we're leaving off tonight.
Y lo vamos a dejar hasta acá, pero la próxima vamos a empezar ahí mismo donde nos quedamos, que es lo que es la elegibilidad para educación especial.
I have to clarify November's topic. It says reading evaluations. And as I wrote it, I meant a workshop about taking an evaluation, that assessment in any area, and deconstructing it to close reading, not evaluations just about reading skill.
La que está ahí donde dice evaluaciones de lectura no quiere decir que vamos a evaluar lecturas, no, sino que vamos a aprender cómo leer, cómo desglosar cualquier tipo de evaluación de su niño.
And then in December, we're really excited to have our two assistive tech specialists come and create for us a workshop that will be hands-on, where parents will be able to engage with assistive technology devices and tools and have some tips and tricks for holiday break in communication.
En diciembre vamos a tener la oportunidad de darle una capacitación que tiene que ver con la asistencia tecnológica para que usted pueda explorar lo que significa y cómo puede ayudar a sus estudiantes.
We are re-energizing our Norwalk Special Ed Parent Advisory Council. This was a group of parents and educators who used to be incredibly active in our district. COVID had its way with it, and we are looking forward to starting again as soon as next month. My email and Deirdre's is there, and we invite you to email us if you're interested in joining and being a part of that. Also, there's a survey that if you'd like to fill out when you leave today, you can indicate there your interest as well.
También vamos a tener como una encuesta para que usted pueda compartir información que usted le desee compartir. Si está interesado también en participar lo que se llama el SPED, que es de padres con niños de educación especial. Antes del COVID había un grupo de padres muy envueltos en este proceso. Ahí están los correos ambos de la señora Deirdre y de la señora Adams. Y ahí está, si usted quiere participar en esto, nos avisa, nos puede enviar un correo y puede participar.
Thank you. Did I mean Senorita? Senorita Adams. This is a book that is being prepared. There are about 10 pages of parent resources here. And these resources are by and large opportunities within our state, agencies within our state that can support you with your child in your home. This will be published on the website in short order. You will have access to this link with this slide deck. And we're not going to go through it today in the interest of time.
Esto va a ser un recurso de diferentes materiales, de diferente información en nuestra comunidad. Usted lo va a ver puesto en la página web del distrito. Lo estamos poniendo ya en orden para poderle proveer ese tipo de guía y de información para todos los padres.
And these are the documents that outline those state laws, federal laws, resources for families related to process.
Y en cuanto al proceso legal que hemos hablado, estos son los diferentes puntos de información donde usted puede ir y encontrar toda esa información legal para protección suya y de sus niños.
Ms. Adams, we have one last question online.
Sure.
The question is it true to say that a child with an IEP or 504 can never be held back due to their academics?
There is no law related to retention specifically for a student with a 504 or IEP. There are times where parents may engage in the conversation about retention, but the school district by and large focuses those conversations on the research that speaks to the benefit or the cost to retention.
La pregunta tiene que ver con la retención de los niños con educación especial. La idea es que tenemos que ver a cada niño de acuerdo a su plan educativo individualizado y a sus necesidades. Hay ocasiones en las que los padres hablan y solicitan a veces ese tipo de retención Pero en general, pues tenemos que tomar en cuenta factores específicos de cada estudiante.
I apologize, I lost my train of thought. We're going to get that QR code. Give me just a second to come back. We were speaking about retention. Give me just a moment. I am sorry. So what is different for individuals with an IEP is that they have the right to education until June after their 22nd birthday.
Lo importante saber es que los estudiantes con educación especializada tienen derecho a educación hasta el junio después de haber cumplido los 22 años.
Typically, a young person's educational career ends at graduation around their 18th year, 17th or 18th year, typically.
Un estudiante típico termina su educación o su graduación típicamente a los 18.
The vast majority of individuals with IEPs graduate at that time.
La mayoría de los estudiantes con educación individualizada por lo general se gradúan en ese tiempo.
There are a few students who require services for a longer period of time.
Hay algunos que sí requieren educación pasado de los 18.
That is not retention.
Eso no es retención,
It's the educational process.
eso es un proceso educativo.
I'm very interested because I'm hearing a lot of questions about retention. And so one of the questions in this survey is, what else would you like to learn more about? And I'm wondering if we shouldn't engage in a conversation, even with our partners on the schools team in general education, around retention as a whole. So thank you for the questions, and please reach out to me if I can better clarify, or if you can help me prepare a presentation in that area.
Prácticamente si hay más preguntas en cuanto a la retención, podemos ponerlo como un punto de plática en las siguientes capacitaciones, porque hay mucha gente con ese tipo de preguntas, así que le damos gracias a la persona que lo hizo. And then you're going to go into this.
Thank you. This is a survey of the evening. If you're willing and able and have access to a phone that will QR code that survey, we'd be so grateful for your feedback and input. And that's for those of you in outer space as well, not just those of you in the room. I do want to be respectful of time. I am not in a rush to go anywhere, so I'm happy to stay and answer questions, but I think some of our folks have a meeting later.
Por respeto al tiempo, no queremos seguir apurando, pero tenemos el tiempo limitado hasta esta hora. Si usted es tan amable y nos puede tomar un código de eso y hacer lo que es la encuestita, nos encantaría muchísimo.
So I see a couple of questions, but I want to defer. Go ahead.
Yes, certainly.
Okay, very good. And of course, folks, if you have to go.
That timeline that you provided, like the 45 days.
Yes.
I want to just be clear that that's for someone that's already in the school system. So would that timeline look slightly different for the birth to 3 process entering in? Because I'm just a little confused as to what my experience was versus what was on that timeline. And I'm just curious, like, if the timeline is different, could it be put in that format so that it's a little clearer? Because in here, it's very like wordy. And so if you're, at the 2-3-year-old, child, it may be a lot you don't really know what's happening when you come out of birth to 3. And so I'm just curious, is that what happened? Or is it like a slightly different version of what happened?
Do you want to interpret the question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Ella pregunta de que qué sucede en el aspecto desde el nacimiento a los 3. Que si el proceso es lo que pasa, lo que ella explicó, porque en el documento que tenemos acá dice la señora que es un poquito como que hay mucho palabrerío y como que es un poco confuso.
Excellent question. The timeline is the timeline from every referral made until that 45th day, no matter the age. Birth to 3 prior to an evaluation at age 3 doesn't adhere to the 45-day timeline, though for the most part they try. So this question, did you just ask this? I'm sorry, forgive me. Was part of your question, do you have to be part of the school system to get this timeline?
It seemed like the process of birth to 3 coming into the school system
Yes.
did not feel like what was
45
on that
days.
timeline.
Gotcha.
So that's why
Thank
I was
you.
trying to figure out, is there a different timeline and can it be put in how it was, this is so much visibly like
Okay.
easy to interpret as a parent.
Great,
Reading this, like sometimes like especially being like new,
yeah.
it's hard. So I'm trying to just put my own experience together.
We will publish that.
Okay.
And what I will say is that timeline, that 45-day start to finish, from the moment of referral, typically with our tiniest humans, birth to 3 is making the referral,
Right.
right? So as soon as a student is 3, that referral starts, your timeline is on. Now it's 45 school days, which can be a little deceiving. We talk about special education math, right? It's a little different than the math that we've learned. So day 1 is a school day and all 45 of those days are a school day.
Right.
If you hit summer, it pauses. So you could have day 8 on the last day of school, day 9 is the first day of school, and you've got that whole chunk of time in the summer, which makes it weird. So but again, that timeline, whether you're in school or not, if a student is let's say a 6-year-old and not enrolled in school yet, but the parent is referring, clock starts day 1.
Before they enter the school system.
Yeah, now new systems in Connecticut, we're adjusting and getting used to them, but with our new system, students must be registered. We hope that when a child is registered, they start school, but we can't deny that process if the child isn't attending school. The timeline is still intact.
Okay. La pregunta venía en cuanto a lo que es los niños pequeños, si la línea numérica o la regla numérica también es igual en cuanto a los 45 días. Ya cuando los niños están en el sistema educativo deben de estar registrados en el sistema educativo para nosotros poder hacer las intervenciones. Es un poquito no tan claro cuando antes, ¿verdad? Desde 0 a 3 es un proceso un poquito diferente, pero ya en el sistema escolar nosotros nos adheremos a lo que es el tiempo de los 45 días, desde el día 1 hasta el día de completar los servicios especializados.
Mr. Faust.
There's, first of all, thank you for the presentation. It was excellent, and the translation is really good too. There's probably 100 questions, and an hour is not simply enough, and I want to be conscious of that. But just a couple things, we could probably talk about later, just, some points. Governance of the IEPs. You mentioned the systems. Sounds like you guys are trying to get something off the shelf. Are they governed individually at the different schools, centrally here? You don't have to give me a full answer, but I'm just kind of curious about that. And probably the second question will be the clock. I would love to see a bridge with what happens in the summer because it stops, but I know that's nothing you could do here. So I'm just more to come on that, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. And I see you back there. I see you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Faust got your way. I
I'm a
apologize.
little wide on you.
All right, not a problem, brother. Not a problem.
Violet, do you want to interpret the question?
Sure. ¿Quién gobierna el proceso de educación especial? Él dice, fue la pregunta del señor, pero como él tiene más preguntas relacionadas, dice que puede ser una gama muy amplia para la respuesta. Ella va a tratar de responderla, pero también hay otra pregunta ahí atrás.
Okay, so the timeline stopping, I'm going to answer quickly. But you're right, I think we could have a whole hour or more on this. We do our level best when that clock is stopping to conduct evaluations in the summer to the best that we can so that it isn't extended. A student who leaves us on the last day of school can be a completely different student on the first day of school. Summer is so impactful in the life of a young person. So here in district, we're not obligated to, but we try in every place that we can to continue those evaluations. There are times where we're also meeting in PPT. I would say prior to our staffing concerns, we were in a better position to do that and to exceed that 45-day. With the world being what it is, we're continuing to do the best that we can there. So, but you're right, that is a really impactful time. Yep, Bridget, stop. Okay.
El tiempo de las evaluaciones, estábamos hablando de qué sucede en el verano, como parte de la pregunta. En el verano, pues, como dijo la señorita Adams. La señorita Adams dijo que cuando hay, por ejemplo, se le hace vamos a decir, un referido de educación especial para una evaluación. El día que termina el último día de la escuela, ahí pausa lo que es el proceso de los 45 días y empieza nuevamente cuando reconvenimos el año escolar. Sin embargo, este distrito trata lo más posible de llevar a cabo esas evaluaciones aún en el verano, aunque sabemos que los niños cambian exageradamente a veces en el verano y a veces son niños completamente diferentes después del verano.
And the first question around governance. So the levels of assurance around compliance start at the federal level, and there are obligations that we as a district have to meet periodically throughout the year. We report those data to the federal government through the IEP database, which we now know as CT SEDS. So the system extracts data and sends it to the federal government that is then monitored also by the state. And then that level of oversight is then articulated back to us for corrective action if necessary, or celebration, which is what we're usually hoping for. We were really excited in a recent back to school event put on by the state to celebrate 2 areas of compliance that Norwalk excelled, one of which we were a small number of school districts, and truly the only district of our size to meet this criteria, which is great. Specifically, it was that we have had an inclusion rate for our individuals at 80% or higher for 3 consecutive years. Incredible. The second point was that we were at or above 90% compliant with the writing and development of our IEPs. Again, it was one of our goals last year. We are actually, I would argue, a bit higher than 97, but we have to let the machines do what the machines do. And we truly celebrate that we've met that goal. But then Bridget.
Okay. En cuanto a lo que quién gobierna los planes educativos, nosotros nos adheremos a lo que el Estado nos manda a hacer. Una de las cosas que tenemos ahora en lugar o establecido es que tenemos un nuevo programa que se llama SEDS. Ese sistema es computarizado. Toda la información, la que ponemos para los niños de educación especial y las fechas límites están puestas en ese sistema de educación. El gobierno entonces, al nivel estatal, ellos reciben esa data de información y ellos pueden ver dónde estamos haciendo bien y dónde quizás estamos deficientes. Lo que nos ha encantado es que hemos logrado 2 áreas de competencia en cuanto a ese sistema. Estamos haciendo un buen trabajo en cuanto a los números que se están poniendo ahí para los niños de educación especial y estamos satisfechos por eso.
So then here at the district level, we know compliance is the foundation of the work. It's the beginning. We have a compliant IEP and we build a compliant program. And so that governance starts with our department, of course, with district level cabinet supervising our work. My team that you met here or in their photos is working very closely with their schools to ensure that those IEPs are being implemented with fidelity. And so when there are questions of that governance, we bring those questions to the table and we ask families to raise those concerns and questions so that we can engage in getting better at being better. And it is always the hope that we find areas where we need to improve and then place that corrective action immediately.
El plan de nosotros es mejorar cada vez. Y a través de lo que el Estado pone como parámetros, nosotros estamos tratando de adherirnos a lo que tenemos que hacer a través de completar esos procesos de educación especial. Estamos aprendiendo cada vez y con la ayuda de los padres también podemos mejorar. Si hay preocupaciones, usted nos las trae y nosotros podemos trabajar en esas áreas de deficiencia.
Fairly answered?
Fairly answer, yes.
All right.
There's a lot
You
more,
always
like-
can keep going, yes.
Ms. Adams, just one last, I'm going to paraphrase a question that was online, and this will be the last one from online. It's from a parent that basically is asking, if a child receives an IEP, is it the parent's responsibility to make sure the teacher knows the IEP, what is the IEP, and then to implement it? And I think that's it, yeah.
That's a great question. And the questioner is receiving praise from the audience here. So it is not the parent's responsibility. I would argue that it is the parent's responsibility to be an equal partner and collaborator with the school team who is implementing that program in the school.
Los padres son parte de ese proceso. La pregunta era de la audiencia es si los padres tienen la obligación de ellos informar a los maestros sobre el plan educativo individualizado. La respuesta es no es parte de su obligación. Tenemos un equipo en cada escuela que tiene como carga, tiene como responsabilidad asegurarse que los maestros estén sabedores de lo que son las necesidades del estudiante a través de ese plan educativo.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you guys for, your extended stay. I know some of you obviously had appointments or engagements afterwards, but my main question is for those parents that want to be a part of the team or the council and also find ways to provide more support, not only by the community, but also by financially, who would I have to speak to in order to be a part of that? Because one of the things that, I wasn't really part of it during my child's, when he was younger, but their mother was very much engaged and suffered a lot of troubles or struggles in the state of New York. And one of the things, I'm not sure of the city of Norwalk, but regardless, that's something I would highly like to be a part of to increase that awareness and support.
Thank you. Thank you. We need that. You can certainly start at your school level and see what supports you can offer and engage in conversation there. But I would also be over the moon if you would contact me in the department so we can collaborate at a higher balcony view to impact the entire community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Pregunta si cómo se puede envolver en el proceso. La señorita le dice de que pueden volverse a su nivel de escuela y también al nivel un poquito más alto si desean comunicarse con la oficina central, ellos le pueden ir indicando cómo usted se puede envolver más activamente.
There's also our board who does this of their own free will and freedom, and we are so grateful, and I'm sure they would welcome conversation as well at all times. So we have certainly exceeded our time, and I'm so grateful because the conversation is so important. Truly, humbly, with emotion happening, I thank you for coming this evening. And for all of you out there, last year, we attempted 3 workshops for families, and unfortunately, we had no one attend. And so we identified what could have been those barriers and did all that we could to take them down so that we could create this space and time. And so it was amazing to see 60 respondents to this workshop. And so I look forward to planning more interactive and engaging and informative sessions in the future. And if we're lucky, maybe even beyond once a month. I think we can start to set our sights a little higher.
Estamos agradecidos, gracias a ustedes por haber atendido. Estamos contentos que hay muchas personas que se han apuntado para esta capacitación. Anteriormente, el año pasado, lo hicimos 3 veces, pero tuvimos corta participación. Estamos muy entusiasmados y queremos proveerle más información a través de talleres subsecuentes.
And this is, in fact, a public Board of Education subcommittee meeting. So to that end.
Well, I was going to say thank you very much for the presentation.
Yes.
Thank you for the interpretation. It's been wonderful. I think that it's been very informative so far, but there's so much information. I feel like we could have really kept on going. So I look forward to continuing the conversation as we go along in the future meetings. Hopefully we'll see most, if not all of you at the October, either here or online. And know that the meetings are also always on YouTube afterwards. So give it about 24 hours and it'll be on YouTube. But with that said, I will conclude this meeting and thank everyone for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gracias a todos.
Maestro. And thank you all. Please eat and sign